Doesn't work? Oh, yeah. Thank you. So that makes it easier for me. So here you see a little bit the numbers overview. So at the moment we have 1,150 sites up and running, and about 150 of them are running in Asia, which I'm responsible for with the team. And we have that from about 800 clients. So an ever growing and growing portion of them decide to purchase again, which we are, of course, most happy with. For Asia, it's a bit hard to see, but we have here Norway. And in Asia, we are covered from a production facility out of Thailand. So we produce for the local market or assemble for the local market in Thailand and then ship it out from there, where we have presence now in the main markets in North China, in Korea and Japan, and also in Australia and now in Southeast Asia with our office in Singapore. But the slot I really would like to cover is not about AutoStore as such. It is about robots and warehouse robots especially, that they are now really an ever-growing technology. Really appearing all over the place and also within the warehouse, covering all the different processes you might imagine. So I wanted to start and I will keep that very brief with some industry trends. I think Terry Tan from SIG already covered the majority of them. It's pretty obvious that e-commerce had a tremendous drive and growth event for automation robots as such, because all of a sudden the warehouses had to do all this shopping work, which before was done from us manually in grocery stores, retail stores. And also, of course, the urbanization helped a lot, because all of a sudden it made sense to invest into larger facilities around the large cities, and now is growing, especially around urbanized locations. Also, of course, growing consumer demands made automation growing faster. So we all want stuff basically now in very, very large choices. So we want to have this blue t-shirt from last season with this red sock in the same package now. And that's a really hard logistical challenge, which I believe robots can help pretty well. And I'd like to go back now 11, 13 years, where one of our, I would say a very famous robotic market player produced one video which is called The Magic Shelf. A colleague of mine sent that over. He now works for us in the US. And they really summarized the problem in a very good, very old, but funny movie.
What, each case? Man, you're killing me. This place is huge. It's gonna take all day. Be an easy way. Let's say it's just a magic shelf. Say what I want, and magically appear. It's a software. It's a shoes. DVD. It's something I want to watch. This is great. Shampoo. Big Bob. More shampoo. Butterscotch chips. So much with everything. How about makeup? This isn't magic. This is real and easy to use. Beyond robots deliver shelves of inventory to pick stations.
Yeah, and this company, Kiva, back then was sold in the same year they produced this video for $775 million US to a very famous company, Amazon. And then they decided to take it from the market and basically only supplied their orange robots inside the large Amazon network. And they really accelerated the whole robot deployment, I think also for the total market, the free market. And I'd like to just briefly now give an overview of what technologies these days are usually used for this typical heart of a warehouse fulfillment solution, which is usually bucketed in everything around rack-based shuttle systems in different variations of 1D, 2D, or 3D systems, especially suited for very high, tall buildings. Then we have the Cube store with AutoStore in the middle, and then we have the AMRs and ACRs really driving mostly, but not always, racks to pickers. But what they all in principle have in common, they either work as a magic shelf or they work as a magic table, because all they do is really these robots run around in the whole warehouse and bring you goods magically into your table on a very nice height in a very precise manner, and really with astonishing uptimes, making sure these warehouses don't break when you need them. So that's what these solutions do. And I'd like now to go a bit stronger into publications and then how we can different bucket these systems. There is a report which is published now every year from STIC on goods to person technologies as such, including also our technologies and other technologies. And they show that in principle, you have different choices on throughput and cost. And we are working very hard with AutoStore to make the cost of throughput cheaper by adding more software. So just 2 years ago, we introduced a new software router, which makes throughput accessible cheaper by just having smarter controls over the same amount of robots. And we're also going in that high throughput market with our technology now going forward. But in principle, they all work similar. You either have access to the product from the side, which are here in green, or you have access to the products from the top. And then it comes in different variations and rankings, and of course they're all biased, and it's hard to really compare apple to apple because it's not such a big market. So I think Amazon is now proud having, I think, 500,000 to 1 million robots out there, but the rest of us, everyone in this industry might have 100,000, 200,000. So if anyone has a better number, please give it to me. But that's the estimate the industry has. So there is maybe 1 million robots out there in warehouses, and half of that for sure, or more than, is at Amazon, and the rest with all the rest. And yeah, so when we now compare the different value propositions of all these robots, you see that on the throughput rate, it's usually the shuttles and also the cube storage solutions providing at the moment the highest rates. So that's 5,000, 10,000, or 15,000, up to 20,000 retrievals an hour out of a single storage zone. That's hard. That's really hard because you get a lot of congestions, traffic jams. That's not an easy software problem to fix. But here, after 20 years of experience, we and a lot of our strong partners have very, very good answers to address these high throughput rates. But on the density level, we have really some unique positioning. And I'd like to show here some slides really to make it also visual and transparent how strong we really play with this cube storage solution in that field. On the scalability, we also believe we are very flexible. Of course, the AMRs are also very flexible. You can move an AutoStore warehouse from one facility into a new one. So if you, for whatever reason, can no longer use it, our partners have served clients to dismantle an AutoStore, put it on trucks, bring it somewhere else, and then direct it again. And that was commercially sensible. So it was not something which was very, very expensive, but usually there is a business case for moving an AutoStore. You can, of course, also extend it. Clients do that all the time. You can add more robots, you can add more ports, and that's also possible for majority of the other technologies. but might take a little longer when you have conveyors and lifts and maybe racking structures, and then the more complex mix of technologies to bring into a warehouse. On the item size, I think this is where truly we are having the strongest limit on our technology, because it comes at 600, 400 plastic bins on 3 different heights. But here the AMRs and the shuttles, and I will show a video later, can really do it from very large to very small units. And we think that all the other benefits, therefore, would make it very clever to combine our solutions with other solutions, which our partners do all the time. So we have V&A trucks combined with an AutoStore in order to get full access to this space utilization with our Cube Store for everything which fits in the 600, 400 bin, and for everything else, you use other technologies as an add-on to that. Also, that's true, of course, for direct carton handling. So if you, for whatever reason, want to buffer cartons coming in from production facilities outside, you can put them with AMRs, with shuttles directly on storage, and combine that then with downstream technology. Also, STIG has published here different benefits, and they mention up to 10x efficiency improvements on various technologies. Here mentioning the shuttles and cube storage solutions versus a gain or a benefit on the efficiency of 1.5 if you're using not that, I would say, long-term investments technologies. So also, of course, that goes for the delivery time. We have standardized robots. We have quite a lot of them on stock. Of course, we customize and we engineer these robots for you, and there is a certain deployment time for installation and for also the software side of things. But usually these flexible robotic automation solutions are deployed quicker, and that's a benefit for also for 3PL companies or others which might have strong pressure on their offerings. So I've mentioned also the space before, and here I'd like to use 3 slides which I have received from one of our partners. But that's generically true for the technology. So if you would check an AutoStore and say 10,000 bins, you put them in a corner, it would take about 230 square meters. And that same warehouse to be filled with a shuttle system would take pretty much double that size, or with an AMR 4 times the size. And that's really one of our key benefits. That's why we call ourselves the space makers, and because we can save 4 times the space in a warehouse. In a traditional racking warehouse, no matter if it's other robots or if it's a manual operation, 4 times is usually the benefit which we see, which we get. And these days, when warehouse prices, especially in the cities, really skyrocket, that's almost half the cost savings you get, or almost same amount of cost savings you get, than potential labor costs, which you might also find in automation projects. So, the whole slot is called Robots Everywhere. And I don't mean everywhere geographically. I'd like to put them on the process map. So when we talk about robots everywhere, I'd like to see the 4 walls of a warehouse here and start on one side, let's say the receiving, and finish basically on the goods out. So when the trucks come in on top and the trucks leave on the bottom. Traditionally, there was, I would say, always in the center, the easiest possibility to put robotic automation, and it was super hard on the peripherals. So really on the inbound and outbounds, that's a pretty new thing to happen. But it seems to be really growing very, very fast, and is now really deployed larger and larger. One, and there are different vendors out there, it's just that I found some of these videos better to show, demonstrating these technologies. One interesting one is Stretch from Boston Dynamics, which I think is their first commercial product, which shows how unloading of containers onto conveyor is possible these days. So super smart. I always like to watch these Boston Dynamic videos because they show all the flexibilities of these robots. And in principle, they're movable robots, so they don't need to be bolted down to that one door. So you see that this robot now will move to the next container, to the next truck, and simply puts all these cartons onto a conveyor. But what happens next, right? So usually then you have a lot of people which need to do this decanting work. I told you before that AutoStore only comes with the 600, 400 bins, but there seem to be now also solutions on the market, not from us, but so I found one from also an Austrian company, which automatically decant items into these bins. So once you have them on a conveyor, robots can put them into the bins. They would flip the whole thing. And then another robot, it's pretty mechanical construction, would take it out. Of course, it's not a one robot fits it all solution, but that can take away some volume. So of course, it's always a question on the cost effectiveness for the specific countries and markets, but as the subject is called robots everywhere, I also wanted to show that this process is slowly getting really automated. Of course, I would say the strongest portion of the investment is usually on the goods to person system, or on the goods to robot system. That's usually what I've shown before in these 3-4 different categories. And here I'd like to show another animation which maybe shows the possibilities of AutoStore. So where you have robots driving on the top, there could be tunnel constructions. So we can really modularly build our solutions into almost any warehouse. And then robots or people could pick out these items, which come out all the time correctly, and combine them with other robots. So here we have AMRs then driving these bins into other zones. Again, this is scalable. So this is just one version that starts from 4 robots to 1,000 or 3,000 robots. That's really something totally scalable. But what happens now, I told you how to combine these solutions with oversized or very fast items and others. And I'd like to show here a case which I found from the skiing industry. I'm a big skier. And they had a problem putting skis in the AutoStore bin because you don't want to cut them at 600 millimeters. So what they did actually, and they also had a struggle because that location is in Innsbruck. So that means they have an airport in there. It's a valley. And they couldn't build very high. So they had to go all the way down in the cellar with lifts. So they were very, very short on space. And what they did is they put these skis on AMR racks in principle, and then transported them in a combination again with an AutoStore. So they put an AutoStore for everything which fits in these 600, 400 bins, and everything which did not fit, they added as supplement retrievals from AMRs to the same pickers, and then put it into a picking cart, which then drove it all the way to the carton and packaging machines. And then when we go to the outflow, so now we have everything kind of shown from a picking perspective. Of course, sometimes you need a carton. We have a site in the Netherlands where a box would be erected, and then an AMR would pick it up and bring it to the next station. So here again, a picker could put it onto an AMR, and then off it goes for sorting and for other downstream processes. Of course, a large portion of the volume will remain with manual picking. So I think the manual picker is really hard to beat because it's so flexible and it's very efficient. These days, it's I think especially when you pick bananas or apple and so fruit, it's a very sensitive topic, and no one wants to get the scratched or whatever fruit element. So we constantly, yeah.
Reduces the need for repetitive hand movements for the operator. With improved operator satisfaction comes better employee retention, which in turn enhances efficiency and productivity. All in all, having a focus on operator ergonomics creates a win-win situation for employee and employer. And if that wasn't enough, the exceptionally dense design of the fusion pod means there will often be space around it to easily integrate it with other technologies such as conveyors, robotic piece picking, and brick wall system, making it the perfect solution for facilitating seamless automated picking workflows. AutoStore fusion pod makes picking easy and efficient.
So our idea is, of course, not to replace all warehouse workplaces, but to really take away the hardest burden. So I think Amazon also published that on average, their manual warehouse workers have to walk about 12 miles a day, 15 kilometers roughly, and that's a really tiring job. So all our robots really do is take away this walking and carrying and lifting things, and the people usually remain, the majority of them, in workplaces which are super ergonomic, super safe, and really allow for very high pick rates. But some clients decided to go even further than that. And there is now really, that's funny to watch if you like robots like myself, a lot of new stuff coming out. That's a site in the US from, not that one, the next one. So here it is a robotic picking combined with an OPEX, and here is robotic picking combined with an AutoStore. And what's really astonishing to me is how smart these robots really became and how little hardware they require on really functioning. So they have really taken away all these safety fences and scanners and so many stuff by just adding more intelligence to them, making it cheaper, of course, and then also more affordable and more safer to use, because these are all cobots which basically cannot harm anyone. So it's really interesting to see how fast also that piece picking robotic section is growing. And again, it can be a combination of manual and piece picking robots in the warehouses from different vendors. I also have videos, but I will not show them from other vendors in the market. But then usually after picking, after the goods then are in a carton, very often they cannot be shipped out right away. There are buffer needs, there are staging needs, which these days are not often addressed. I think we have a pretty good example in Singapore at the client GLS, done from Swisslog. So that was a very good solution where they used a shuttle as a buffer, but also other technologies are now using over the staging need. We introduced another staging product, which is called our Fusion staging port, where you would have a bin presented with the product you want to pick and another bin, which is then for the client to be buffered. So you could pick inside 1, 2, or 3 items, which a client might want to pick up at the evening. And then outside of your operation hours, that client could request it at one of our pickup ports. You might hear about that more later. So Also, of course, on the sorting side, so when we then leave the warehouse and they are almost ready for shipping, there are different robotic sorting options available. I just mentioned the typical put walls. They also come with mechanical barriers. It's a pretty popular version of it in Japan. They call it, I think, Geta sort, but it's a put wall with a big to light system, which of course allows a certain batch factor to be applied to an AutoStore. So that's of course also possible with automation to apply batch factors. Not everything has to be picked line by line. And also here, then the process is pretty guided. It's very hard to make mistakes. The whole automation solution here makes sure that you can only pick it to the right client destination. And of course, for sorting, it also cannot be missed that there are typical table sort technologies now more and more stronger introduced into the market. Also here we have, I think it's SoftBank Robotics and installation in Japan, where that can be directly combined. You can retrieve a bin for your 15, 20 clients at a time. You can pick them into these table sorts, and then they would be sorted to all these destinations. So, in principle, what I would like to give you from that robotic everywhere 30-minute slots is that it's pretty easy to use them these days. They are flexible automation solutions. They're not fixed, and you're not bound to the next 10 years when you use them. And I want to show 3 different use cases. So the robots also leave the warehouse slower, faster and faster. We have an installation now for Decathlon in Canada, where they use our robots in a shop. So you would go there as a client. You would tell, oh, I want these shoes and this tennis racket and this other stuff. And then the robots would grab it in the back of the store and bring it all to a counter where you then can try them on and play with them and say, okay, no, I want the other shoes, and then another robot brings you that shoe. So there's no need for the shop personnel any longer to disappear for 15 minutes, and you might not know if they come back or not. That's all now outsourced to robots. But also these solutions could become very, very large these days. And I'd just like to show you one of our latest installation, which we have in the UK. With the Hut Group. So they have announced so that's a pretty large site. We have more than 300 of these robots in a single grid. I think it's more than 20,000, if I recall correctly, square meters large, all filled up, 300,000 storage bins. So they are really massive installations these days, really generating a lot of volume. So it is really possible from the back of a store to a very, very large facility with multi-million units, and everything in between is possible. Yeah, so thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to get more questions from you.
All right. Thanks very much, Philipp.
Thanks.
Any question? Maybe we can take one question before Philipp goes. No? No question? Well, definitely, it's interesting to see the evolution, from no robots to where we are today. And I actually like your slide about space maker. Space, and how much cargo and whatever can be stacked up. I wish my bank account like that. Okay, so if not, then thank you very much, Philipp. And then, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our visitor.
Thank you very much, Lawrence.